My name is Rosanna, 34 years old, and right now I'm standing in front of our bathroom mirror carefully applying the deep red lipstick my husband Marcus hates. From our bedroom, I can hear him calling out his usual reminder about tonight's company gala. "Don't embarrass me," he says, his voice carrying that familiar edge of control. My fingers pause as I glance at the drawer where my medical degree lies hidden, gathering dust like all my dreams these past 5 years. Three words keep echoing in my mind. Three words that would change everything tonight. Before I share what happened at that dinner, let me know where you're watching from. Please subscribe if you believe everyone deserves respect in their relationship, because what unfolded that evening proved that sometimes the person trying to dim your light is actually standing in their own shadow. The story of my marriage to Marcus began like so many others with promise and passion that slowly transformed into something I barely recognized. We met during my final year of medical residency at Presbyterian Hospital in New York. I was exhausted from 36-hour shifts running on coffee and determination when this charming investment banker literally bumped into me at a charity fundraiser the hospital was hosting. Marcus was everything I thought I wanted then. Confident, successful, traditionally handsome with his tailored suits and perfect smile. He pursued me with the same intensity he applied to closing million-dollar deals. Those early days felt like a fairy tale. He would send flowers to the hospital, surprise me with weekend getaways when I could squeeze in time off, and seemed genuinely fascinated by my work in immunology research. He would sit for hours listening to me explain protein synthesis and antibody responses, asking thoughtful questions that made me feel seen and valued. When he proposed after just 8 months down on one knee at the top of the rock, with all of Manhattan glittering below us, I said yes without hesitation. The changes started small after our wedding. First, it was suggestions about taking a little break from medicine once we were married. "You've been working so hard for so long," he would say, stroking my hair. "Don't you want to enjoy being newlyweds?" When I protested that I had worked 12 years for my career, he would kiss my concerns away. "We have plenty of money, sweetheart. My salary is more than enough for both of us." Then came the social events. Marcus moved in powerful circles, attending galas and charity dinners, where the wine cost more than most people's monthly rent. At first, he seemed proud to introduce me. "This is my wife, Dr. Rosanna Miller." But gradually the title disappeared. "This is my wife, Rosanna." Then just, "This is Rosanna." Finally it became, "This is the Mrs.," as if I were an accessory rather than a person. The criticisms crept in like fog. My dress was too academic for his crowd. My conversation topics were too heavy for dinner parties. Did I really need to mention my research when people were just making small talk? Couldn't I just smile more and discuss something lighter like the new restaurant openings or vacation destinations? He started coaching me before events, actually making me practice appropriate responses to common questions. If someone asks what you do, just say you're taking time to focus on family. If they ask about your interests, mention interior decorating or charity work. What Marcus never knew was that I never truly gave up medicine. My maiden name Miller remained on all my professional publications. While he thought I was at the gym or getting my hair done, I was reviewing medical journals at the library. When he traveled for business, which was frequently, I attended virtual conferences and continued collaborating with former colleagues through encrypted emails. My greatest achievement, a breakthrough in treating autoimmune diseases through targeted protein therapy, was published just 3 months ago in the Journal of Immunological Research. The medical community was buzzing about it, but in my own home I remained invisible. The invitation to the Blackstone Holdings annual gala arrived 3 weeks ago, embossed on cream cardstock that felt expensive between my fingers. Marcus had been electric with excitement. This was his firm's most important event of the year, and rumors suggested he was being considered for senior partner. The CEO, James Wellington, was flying in from London specifically for this event. Wellington was known for his photographic memory and his habit of personally vetting every senior hire. Marcus spent hours preparing his talking points, rehearsing his presentation about the Indonesian merger he had orchestrated. He was less concerned with preparing me beyond the usual restrictions. He selected my dress himself, a conservative black sheath that he said was appropriately understated. Nothing that draws attention, he instructed. You're there to support me, not compete with the other wives. The irony of that statement would only become clear later. He drilled me on acceptable topics, which were whether his recent promotion, the charity auction, and questions about our plans for children, which I was to deflect graciously. Under no circumstances was I to mention anything medical, scientific, or related to my past career. What neither of us knew was that the guest list for that evening included some of the most prominent names in medical research and pharmaceutical development. Blackstone Holdings had recently expanded into healthcare investments, acquiring several biotech firms. The very people Marcus wanted to impress were the same ones who had been following my research for years. The afternoon of the gala, I stood in our walk-in closet running my fingers along the black dress Marcus had chosen. It was beautiful in its simplicity, but it felt like a uniform of invisibility. As I began getting ready, Marcus hovered nearby, his anxiety manifesting as micromanagement. Not too much makeup, he said, watching me apply foundation. You know how you get carried away sometimes. When I reached for my favorite red lipstick, he actually took it from my hand. The nude one is more appropriate. While he showered, I checked my phone, finding an email that made my heart race. The American Medical Association had selected my research for the Excellence in Innovation Award. The ceremony was next month, and they wanted to feature my work in their annual publication. I quickly deleted the email, knowing Marcus checked my phone regularly, but the knowledge glowed warm in my chest. As I styled my hair into the simple chignon he preferred, Marcus stood behind me, reviewing his rules one more time. Remember, these people are out of your league intellectually. They discuss markets and mergers, not whatever it is you used to do, just nod and smile. Agree with everything. If someone asks you a question you don't understand, deflect to me. And please, Rosanna, do not attempt to be clever. Your little medical jokes don't translate to the real world. The car ride to the Ritz-Carlton felt eternal. Marcus drove his new BMW, a recent bonus purchase, while continuing his litany of instructions. If you see me talking to Wellington, do not approach unless I signal you. If other wives try to engage you in gossip, stay neutral. Don't drink more than 2 glasses of champagne, you know how you get. And for the love of everything, if someone mentions anything medical or scientific, do not engage. Just say, that's not your area, and change the subject. As we pulled up to the hotel, I saw the valet's eyes widen at the sight of the luxury vehicles already lined up. Mercedes, Ferraris, Bentleys, all gleaming under the evening lights. Marcus handed over his keys with practiced nonchalance, but I caught him checking his hair in the reflection of the glass doors. His hand found my elbow, gripping slightly too tight as he guided me inside. The ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across the room, and an actual fountain flowing with champagne served as the centerpiece. A string quartet played classical music from a raised platform, and servers in white gloves circulated with trays of canapés that looked more like art than food. The air hummed with power and money conversations about acquisitions and quarterly projections, mixing with the clink of expensive glassware. Marcus immediately spotted his colleagues near the bar and practically dragged me over. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice taking on that false jovial tone he used for networking. "You all remember my wife." The men nodded politely their wives, offering the kind of smiles that didn't reach their eyes. One of them, a blonde woman named Cynthia, whose husband ran the Hong Kong office, asked what I did to keep busy. Before I could answer, Marcus laughed and said, "She keeps our house beautiful and is learning to play tennis." As Marcus launched into a story about his latest triumph, I excused myself to find the powder room. I needed a moment to breathe, to remind myself why I endured this. But as I crossed the ballroom, I noticed something strange. Several people were looking at me. Not with the casual disinterest I was used to at these events, but with something like recognition. A distinguished older man near the dessert table did a visible double-take. A woman in a stunning emerald dress whispered urgently to her companion while gesturing in my direction. Then I saw him. Dr. Robert Harrison from Johns Hopkins, one of the most respected immunologists in the country. We had corresponded about my research just last month, though he knew me only as Dr. Miller. His eyes met mine across the room, and I saw the exact moment recognition dawned. He started walking toward me with purpose, and I felt panic rise in my throat. I quickly diverted to the bar, ordering a water with shaking hands. But Dr. Harrison was not easily deterred. "Dr. Miller," he said, his voice carrying genuine warmth, "I cannot believe you're here. I've been hoping to meet you in person ever since I read your paper on protein synthesis. It's absolutely groundbreaking." My mind raced, trying to find a graceful way out of this situation. But before I could respond, Marcus appeared at my side, his hand possessively claiming my waist. "I don't believe we've met," he said to Dr. Harrison, his tone suggesting the older man was intruding. "Marcus Wellington, Blackstone Holdings. Dr. Robert Harrison, Johns Hopkins Medical School," the doctor replied, extending his hand. "I was just telling your wife how brilliant her recent research is. The medical community is buzzing about her breakthrough." Marcus laughed, that condescending chuckle I had heard 1,000 times. "I think you have my wife confused with someone else. Rosanna doesn't work in medicine." His fingers tightened on my waist, a warning I understood perfectly. Dr. Harrison looked confused, his eyes moving between us. "But I'm quite certain. Dr. Rosanna Miller's paper on autoimmune treatment through targeted protein therapy, it's revolutionary. We're implementing her protocols in our clinical trials next month." My husband's face had taken on that dangerous stillness that preceded his worst moods. "You must be mistaken," he said firmly. "My wife's name is Rosanna Wellington, and she's never worked in medicine. Perhaps you're thinking of someone else." Now, if you'll excuse us, his tone making it clear the conversation was over. But Dr. Harrison wasn't alone in his recognition. As we moved away, I could see others beginning to connect the dots. Dr. Margaret Stone from Columbia was whispering with the head of neurology from Mount Sinai. Two pharmaceutical executives were pulling up something on their phones, their eyes darting between the screen and me. The next hour became a delicate dance of avoidance and deflection. Every time someone approached with that look of recognition, Marcus would steer me in another direction. But the room wasn't that large, and the medical community present was significant. It was like trying to hide in plain sight while spotlights kept finding me. Dr. Margaret Stone finally cornered us near the silent auction tables. She was a force of nature in her 70s, with silver hair and piercing blue eyes that had intimidated countless medical students over the decades. Marcus couldn't simply dismiss her the way he had Dr. Harrison. "Rosanna Miller," she said, and it wasn't a question. "I supervised your residency rotation in immunology 12 years ago. You were one of the most brilliant residents I ever taught. When I read your recent paper, I wasn't surprised at all. You always had that rare combination of intellectual rigor and creative thinking." Marcus's grip on my arm had become painful. "You're mistaken," he started, but Dr. Stone cut him off with a look that could freeze helium. "Young man," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed, "I may be old, but I'm not senile. I know my former students, especially the exceptional ones." She turned back to me, her expression softening. "I'm so proud of what you've accomplished, my dear. Your research will save countless lives." Other doctors had begun to gather, drawn by Dr. Stone's presence and the growing buzz of recognition. Someone mentioned that the New England Journal of Medicine was fast-tracking my paper for publication. Another doctor from Cleveland Clinic said they were already using my protocols with remarkable success. A pharmaceutical executive mentioned that his company was interested in licensing my patent. Marcus stood frozen beside me, his face cycling through expressions of confusion, anger, and disbelief. Each revelation seemed to hit him like a physical blow. His wife, the woman he had deemed too simple for his sophisticated world, was being celebrated by the very people he desperately wanted to impress. "This is impossible," he finally managed to say. "Rosanna doesn't have a medical degree. She doesn't do research. There's some confusion here." He attempted his confident businessman smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. "My wife has been focusing on our home and family planning." Dr. Stone's eyebrows rose nearly to her hairline. Is that so? She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone with surprising dexterity for her age. Let me just pull up the author photo from the journal. She turned the screen toward the growing crowd. The photo was from last year, taken at a conference I had attended while Marcus was in Tokyo. It was unmistakably me. The moment stretched taut as everyone absorbed this information. Here was Marcus Wellington, rising star at Blackstone Holdings, claiming his wife didn't work in medicine while surrounded by people who knew otherwise. The professional damage was already beginning. I could see it in the way his colleagues exchanged glances, reassessing everything they thought they knew about him. That's when everything shifted into surreal territory. The crowd near the entrance parted, and James Wellington himself walked in. The CEO of Blackstone Holdings was younger than I expected, perhaps early 50s, with prematurely silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention without effort. His assistant, a sharp-looking woman in a navy suit, walked beside him, gesturing toward our group while speaking quietly. Wellington's eyes found mine across the room, and he smiled. Not the practiced smile of a businessman, but something genuine and eager. He walked straight toward us, bypassing several senior partners who tried to intercept him, including Marcus's direct supervisor. Dr. Rosanna Miller, he said when he reached us, extending his hand. I've been hoping to meet you all evening. I'm James Wellington. Your research is exactly what our new pharmaceutical division has been looking for. We're prepared to offer you $50 million in funding to establish your own research facility. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel every eye in the room on us. Marcus's hand had fallen from my waist, hanging uselessly at his side. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. He looked like a man watching his entire world rearrange itself in real time. Wellington continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension. When my team told me you might be here tonight, I couldn't believe our luck. Your approach to autoimmune disorders is revolutionary. We've been following your work for the past 2 years. The patent alone could be worth hundreds of millions once it's fully developed. Marcus finally found his voice, though it came out strangled. This is my wife, he said, as if that explained something. Wellington looked at him with polite confusion. Yes, I'm aware. Dr. Miller uses her maiden name professionally, I understand. You must be incredibly proud. It's not often someone develops a treatment that could fundamentally change how we approach an entire category of diseases. The crowd had grown larger now, people abandoning their conversations to witness this unprecedented scene. I could see Marcus's supervisor looking thunderous, probably wondering why Marcus had never mentioned his wife's connections to the medical field when the firm was actively expanding into healthcare. Actually, I heard myself say, my voice surprisingly steady, my husband wasn't aware of my recent work. I've been conducting my research independently. The words fell into the silence like stones into still water ripples spreading outward through the crowd. Wellington's expression shifted to something unreadable as he looked between Marcus and me. He wasn't aware, he repeated slowly, as if trying to understand how that was possible. Marcus attempted damage control. What Rosanna means is that I encouraged her to pursue her interests independently. I've always been her biggest supporter. He tried to take my hand, but I stepped away. Is that so? I said, and years of suppressed frustration began bubbling to the surface. Like when you told me that medicine was a hobby I should have outgrown, or when you said my research was too boring to discuss at dinner parties, or perhaps when you specifically instructed me tonight not to embarrass you by pretending to be intelligent. The crowd collectively inhaled. Someone was definitely recording this on their phone. Marcus's face had gone from red to white, and back to red again. Rosanna, this isn't the place, he hissed. But Dr. Stone intervened. On the contrary, she said loudly, I think this is exactly the place. She addressed the crowd like she was giving a lecture. Here we have one of the most brilliant medical minds of her generation, and her own husband didn't even know it. What does that tell us about how we value women's contributions? Other women began speaking up. One of the pharmaceutical executive's wives mentioned that she had a PhD in chemistry, but her husband introduced her as a homemaker. Another woman revealed she had sold her successful consulting firm after marriage, because her husband felt it was inappropriate for her to earn more than him. The room was crackling with decades of suppressed achievements and silenced ambitions. James Wellington raised his hand, and the room gradually quieted. His voice carried the authority of someone used to being heard. "Dr. Miller, would you do us the honor of explaining your research? I think everyone here would benefit from understanding what you've accomplished." I looked at Marcus, whose face was a mask of barely controlled rage and humiliation. Then I looked at the crowd of people, many of whom had spent years dismissing me as just another trophy wife at these events. The moment felt pivotal, like standing at the edge of a cliff deciding whether to jump or retreat. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, away from Marcus and into the center of the circle that had formed. "Thank you, Mr. Wellington. For the past 5 years, I've been working on a novel approach to treating autoimmune disorders. The current treatments suppress the entire immune system, leaving patients vulnerable to infections. My research has identified a way to target only the malfunction cells while preserving the healthy immune response." As I spoke, I found my rhythm, the confidence that had carried me through medical school and residency, returning like muscle memory. I explained the protein synthesis process, the clinical trial results, the potential applications. The crowd listened with rapt attention, some taking notes on their phones, others asking surprisingly insightful questions. Marcus tried several times to position himself beside me to create the impression that we were a team. Each time I subtly moved away. When someone asked about the challenges I faced in my research, I looked directly at my husband and said, the biggest challenge was working in isolation without support from those closest to me. But sometimes adversity breeds innovation. Wellington was taking notes on his tablet, occasionally conferring with his assistant. When I finished speaking, he addressed the room. "This is exactly why Blackstone is moving into healthcare. Brilliant minds like Dr. Miller's are revolutionizing medicine. We need to be part of that revolution." He turned to Marcus. "Mr. Wellington, you've been hiding quite an asset. I'm surprised you never mentioned your wife's work during our healthcare acquisition meetings." Marcus attempted to salvage the situation. "I wanted Rosanna's work to stand on its own merits, not because of our connection," he said, trying for a tone of noble sacrifice. "How thoughtful," Dr. Stone said dryly. "So thoughtful that you told Dr. Harrison she had never worked in medicine. That level of support must be why she publishes under her maiden name." The conversation was spiraling beyond Marcus's control, and I could see him calculating damage control. But then something unexpected happened. His secretary Jennifer, a quiet woman who had worked for him for 3 years, stepped forward. "Mr. Wellington," she said to the CEO, her voice shaking slightly but determined, "I think you should know that Marcus regularly refers to his wife as," and she paused, gathering courage, "his beautiful but empty-headed accessory. Last week, he told the entire mergers team that the only reason he married her was because a successful man needs a trophy wife for events like this." The room erupted. Several of Marcus's colleagues looked disgusted. His supervisor was typing furiously on his phone, probably already calculating the damage to the firm's reputation. Wellington's expression had gone cold, the kind of cold that preceded major corporate restructuring. Marcus turned on Jennifer. "You're fired," he snarled, forgetting that secretaries at his level were employed by the firm, not individual bankers. "I don't think you're in a position to make that call," Wellington said quietly. "In fact, Mr. Wellington, I think we need to discuss your future with Blackstone. Someone who can't recognize brilliance in his own home can hardly be trusted to identify valuable investments for our clients." The implications hung heavy in the air. Marcus's career at Blackstone was over, everyone knew it. The very event he had seen as his launching pad to senior partner had become his professional funeral. But I wasn't done. There was something I needed to say, something that had been building for 5 years. "Marcus," I said, and waited until his eyes met mine. "You spent so much time trying to dim my light because you were afraid it would overshadow yours. But the truth is, you never had a light to begin with. You're a mediocre man who needed to marry excellence and then hide it to feel special." Someone in the crowd whispered "damn" under their breath. Marcus's face contorted with rage, and for a moment I thought he might actually strike me in front of everyone. But Wellington stepped between us. his presence a clear warning. Dr. Miller Wellington said, turning his back on Marcus entirely, "I would like to discuss not just funding your research, but bringing you on as our Chief Medical Innovation Officer. We're building a team of the brightest minds in medicine. Your expertise would be invaluable." I could feel the room holding its breath, waiting for my response. Marcus made one last desperate attempt. "Rosanna, please, we should discuss this at home. You're emotional. You don't understand what you're doing." On the contrary, I said, reaching up to remove the diamond earrings he had bought me for our anniversary, "I understand perfectly. I'm done being your secret. I'm done pretending to be less than I am. And I'm done with you." I handed him the earrings, then reached for my wedding ring. The diamond caught the light from the chandeliers. As I pulled it off my finger, the small band that had felt like a shackle for so long. I dropped it into a champagne glass, where it made a small splash, and sank to the bottom. "You wanted me not to embarrass you tonight," I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. "But the only embarrassing thing here is that you had a brilliant wife and were too insecure to appreciate her. Find someone more suitable for your image. I'm sure there are plenty of women who would be happy to play dumb for your ego." The crowd parted as I walked toward the exit, my head high for the first time in years. Dr. Stone fell into step beside me, her hand gentle on my arm. Dr. Harrison flanked my other side, already discussing how my research could integrate with his department's work. Behind us, I could hear the explosion of conversations, Marcus's voice rising in desperate protest, Wellington's calm authority shutting him down. In the lobby, Wellington caught up with us. "Dr. Miller," he said, slightly out of breath, "I meant what I said about the position. Here's my card. Call my office Monday morning. We'll arrange a meeting to discuss terms." I took the card, its weight somehow significant in my hand. "Mr. Wellington," I said, "I appreciate the offer, but I need you to understand something. I won't be anyone's token hire or diversity showcase. If I join Blackstone, it will be because my work speaks for itself." He smiled, the first genuine warmth I had seen from him all evening. "Dr. Miller, your work doesn't just speak, it shouts, and that's exactly what we need." Dr. Stone offered to drive me home, but I realized with a start that I didn't want to go back to that house, that life, that suffocating existence. Jennifer, Marcus's secretary, appeared at my elbow. "Dr. Miller," she said quietly, "I have a guest room if you need somewhere to stay tonight. And tomorrow I can give you the contact information for the lawyer who handled my sister's divorce. She specializes in high-asset cases where one spouse has hidden their true worth." I looked at this woman who I had barely noticed at office parties, always in the background, always invisible like I had been. "Thank you, Jennifer," I said, meaning it deeply. "That would be wonderful." As we waited for the valet to bring Jennifer's car, my phone began buzzing with notifications. Emails from medical colleagues who had seen videos already circulating on social media. Text messages from former residency friends. A call from the American Medical Association about featuring my story alongside the Excellence in Innovation Award. The medical world that I had kept at arm's length was reaching out, welcoming me back. Marcus stumbled out of the hotel just as Jennifer's car arrived. His tie was askew, his face flushed with alcohol and humiliation. "Rosanna, wait," he called out, but security was already beside him, quietly suggesting he wait for his own vehicle. The last I saw of him was in the rearview mirror, standing alone under the harsh lights of the hotel entrance, his shoulders sagging with the weight of his ruined reputation. The man who had been so concerned about appearances had just become the most memorable spectacle in Blackstone Holdings history. That night in Jennifer's guest room, I sat up until dawn responding to emails and messages. My research partner in Switzerland wanted to accelerate our collaboration. The National Institutes of Health inquired about grant opportunities. 3 major universities reached out about endowed chair positions. Each opportunity was a door opening a path forward that I could walk with my head held high. The divorce proceedings began the following week. Marcus initially tried to claim that my research developed during our marriage was marital property. That lasted exactly until my lawyer presented evidence that all my work had been conducted under my maiden name, funded by grants I had secured before marriage, and explicitly excluded from our marital assets in the prenuptial agreement Marcus himself had insisted upon to protect his own wealth. The irony was delicious. His own paranoia about protecting his assets had ensured that my intellectual property remained entirely mine. His lawyer actually laughed when he realized what had happened. Marcus had been so convinced that I would never amount to anything that he hadn't even considered my potential value in the prenup negotiations. 6 months after that fateful gala, my life had transformed beyond recognition. The research facility Wellington promised had become reality, a state-of-the-art laboratory in the Blackstone Medical Innovation Building. My team of 12 researchers was making rapid progress on clinical trials. The autoimmune treatment that Marcus had deemed too boring for dinner conversation was being fast-tracked by the FDA. The medical community embraced me with an enthusiasm that felt like coming home after a long, difficult journey. I gave the keynote address at the International Immunology Conference, standing at a podium where I had once sat in the audience hiding my name tag so Marcus wouldn't find out I had attended. The presentation received a standing ovation, and afterwards, young female researchers lined up to tell me how my story had inspired them to stop hiding their own achievements. The Excellence in Innovation Award ceremony was particularly sweet. The American Medical Association not only honored my research, but also created a new grant program for female researchers who had taken career breaks. They called it the Dr. Rosanna Miller Second Chance Fund, recognizing that brilliant minds sometimes get temporarily derailed by circumstances beyond their control. Marcus's fall from grace had been swift and complete. Blackstone Holdings quietly let him go with a modest severance package that included a non-disclosure agreement. The last I heard, he was working at a small firm in Connecticut, his reputation as the man who didn't recognize his wife's brilliance following him like a shadow. Several of his former colleagues reached out to me with apologies saying they wished they had seen the signs of his controlling behavior earlier. But the most meaningful change was personal. I started therapy with Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a psychologist who specialized in helping women recover from controlling relationships. Through our sessions, I began to understand how my childhood with a father who constantly criticized and a mother who never stood up for herself had primed me to accept Marcus's behavior as normal. I learned that my brilliance hadn't been dimmed by Marcus. It had simply been forced underground where it continued to grow and develop in secret. Like a plant reaching for sunlight through concrete, my intellect had found ways to persist despite the obstacles. The research I produced during those years of suppression was actually some of my best work, born from a desperate need to maintain my sense of self. The dating world felt foreign after 5 years of marriage, but I wasn't in any rush. I focused on my work on rebuilding friendships that had withered under Marcus's disapproval, on rediscovering who I was when no one was trying to make me smaller. I took up salsa dancing, something Marcus had called undignified. I wore red lipstick every day. I laughed loudly at comedy shows and spoke passionately about my work to anyone who would listen. Then at a medical conference in Boston, I met David. He was a neurobiologist from Seattle, tall and lanky with wild Einstein hair and a laugh that filled entire rooms. He approached me after my presentation not to compliment my work, though he did that too, but to challenge one of my assumptions about protein binding. We argued for 3 hours over coffee, our debate attracting a small crowd of amused colleagues. When he asked me to dinner, he said I should warn you I date brilliant women exclusively. Mediocrity bores me. And just so we're clear, I expect you to talk about your work. In detail. I might even take notes. Our relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and genuine admiration. David celebrated every achievement from successful trial results to media appearances. When my research won the Nobel Prize in Medicine 3 years later, he was in the audience crying unabashedly and leading the standing ovation. In his speech at our wedding reception, he said the thing he loved most about me was how brightly I shined and how that light made everyone around me want to shine brighter too. But the most important lesson from that night at the gala came in a quiet moment with Dr. Stone, who had become a mentor and friend. We were having tea in her office at Columbia, surrounded by decades of achievements and accolades. "You know what the real tragedy was," she said, stirring honey into her cup. "It wasn't that Marcus tried to dim your light. Weak people have always tried to diminish strong ones. The tragedy was that you let him even partially, even temporarily. Your brilliance belongs to the world, Rosanna. Never forget that hiding it isn't humility, it's theft from everyone who could benefit from what you have to offer." Today, 5 years after that transformative evening at the Ritz-Carlton, I stand in my own laboratory watching my team work on what might be the cure for multiple sclerosis. The walls are lined with awards and commendations, including a framed photo from the Nobel Prize ceremony. But the item that means the most to me is a small card on my desk sent by a patient whose life was saved by my treatment. It simply says, "Thank you for not giving up." I think about the woman who stood in that bathroom mirror carefully applying nude lipstick to avoid criticism. I wish I could tell her that the very things Marcus called embarrassing about her, her passion for science, her inability to make small talk about nothing, her tendency to get excited about breakthrough discoveries, would one day be celebrated on international stages. I wish I could tell her that his opinion of her worth was just that, an opinion, and a worthless one at that. The young researchers who train in my lab often ask for advice about balancing relationships with careers. I tell them what I learned the hard way, that the right person won't ask you to balance anything. They'll stand beside you while you reach for the stars, maybe even build you a ladder. Anyone who asks you to shrink yourself to make them comfortable is telling you exactly who they are. Believe them. Sometimes in quiet moments, I wonder what would have happened if James Wellington hadn't attended that gala. If the medical professionals in the room hadn't recognized me, would I still be playing the role of the suitable wife, my research hidden under maiden names and secret email accounts? The thought sends chills down my spine. But I've come to understand that revelation was inevitable. Truth has a way of surfacing, especially when it's as significant as a medical breakthrough that could save millions of lives. Marcus could no more permanently hide my light than he could hold back the sunrise with his hands. He was fighting a losing battle against who I fundamentally was. The sweetest vindication came last month when Marcus's new girlfriend, a young analyst from his firm, reached out to me through LinkedIn. She had questions, she said, about certain behaviors she was noticing. The coaching before social events, the subtle criticisms, the suggestions that her career ambitions were cute, but ultimately unnecessary. We met for coffee, and I told her everything. She left that meeting with the phone number for my divorce lawyer and a determination I recognized from my own journey. Last week she sent me a message saying she had ended the relationship and been promoted to senior analyst. Her light, it seems, was too bright for Marcus, too. My story has become something of a legend in certain circles. The woman whose husband told her not to embarrass him at a party where everyone was waiting to meet her. It's been written about in medical journals and business magazines, analyzed in psychology papers about imposter syndrome and coercive control. A filmmaker recently approached me about turning it into a documentary, focusing on how many brilliant women have their achievements hidden or diminished by insecure partners. But for me, the story is simpler than all that. It's about the moment when you realize that the person trying to keep you small is actually terrified of your magnitude. It's about understanding that no amount of love is worth the price of your potential. It's about the liberation that comes from finally, fully, unapologetically being yourself. When someone tells you not to embarrass them, what they're really saying is that your authenticity threatens their facade. Your intelligence exposes their ignorance. Your achievement highlights their mediocrity. Your light reveals their darkness. The kindest thing you can do for both of you is to shine anyway. These days, when I attend galas and events, I wear the brightest colors I can find. I discuss my research with anyone who shows interest. I laugh loudly, speak passionately, and take up all the space I need. Sometimes I catch women watching me with a look I recognize the longing of someone whose light is being dimmed. I make a point of seeking them out, of asking about their work, their dreams, their hidden achievements. You'd be amazed how many brilliant women are hiding in plain sight at these events, their accomplishments buried under their husbands' insecurities. the research facility has become more than just a laboratory. We host monthly seminars for female scientists, providing not just scientific support, but personal empowerment resources. We've created a mentorship program pairing established researchers with young women just starting their careers. The message is consistent and clear that your brilliance is not a threat to the right people. It's a gift to the world. The protein therapy that started all of this has now been successfully used to treat over 10,000 patients worldwide. Each success story, each life saved, each family kept whole is a testament to what almost wasn't. What would have remained hidden if I had continued to play small to prioritize Marcus's comfort over my calling? I've learned that there are two types of people in this world: those who see your light and try to bask in it, and those who see your light and try to extinguish it. The trick is learning to recognize which is which, and having the courage to walk away from the extinguishers even when they claim to love you. Especially then. Love shouldn't require you to be less than you are. It shouldn't demand that you hide your achievements, downplay your intelligence, or pretend to be satisfied with less than your dreams. Real love celebrates your victories, supports your ambitions, and stands in awe of your capabilities. Anything less than that isn't love. It's control dressed up in affection's clothing. The night of the gala changed everything, but not in the way Marcus had planned. He wanted it to be his launching pad to success. Instead, it became my liberation day. He wanted me not to embarrass him. Instead, I revealed him. He thought he was bringing his accessory to a networking event. Instead, he brought a hidden star to her moment of revelation. Today, when young women ask me how I found the courage to speak up that night, I tell them the truth. I didn't find courage. I found exhaustion. I was exhausted from pretending to be less than I was. Exhausted from hiding my achievements. Exhausted from making myself smaller so someone else could feel bigger. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply stop pretending. The universe has a sense of humor, I've discovered. The very thing Marcus feared that I would embarrass him came true in the most spectacular way possible. But the embarrassment wasn't mine. It never was. The only embarrassing thing about that night was that a mediocre man thought he could contain brilliance, that he believed his insecurity was more important than innovation that could save lives. If you're watching this, and any part of my story resonates with you, if you're hiding your light under someone else's shadow, I want you to know something. Your brilliance isn't too much. Your achievements aren't threatening. Your intelligence isn't intimidating. You're not too ambitious, too passionate, too driven. You're exactly as bright as you're meant to be. The problem was never your light. It was always their darkness. What would you do if you knew your worth couldn't be diminished by someone else's opinion? What would you achieve if you stopped making yourself smaller? What could you contribute to the world if you let yourself shine at full brightness? These aren't just questions. They're invitations to step into your full power. That night at the Ritz-Carlton, when everyone was waiting to meet me while my husband was telling me not to embarrass him, taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. When you finally stop hiding who you are, the right people will recognize you immediately. They've been waiting for you all along. The only person who was embarrassed by my brilliance was the person who was too small to appreciate it. So let me ask you, what light are you hiding? What achievement are you downplaying? What dream are you deferring to keep someone else comfortable? Whatever it is, I encourage you to let it shine. The world needs your brilliance, your innovation, your unique contribution. Don't let anyone, no matter how much you think you love them, convince you otherwise. If my story resonates with you, I'd love to hear about your own journey in the comments below. Have you ever had to choose between your potential and a relationship? Have you ever been told you're too much? Share your experiences, because every story of a woman choosing herself, choosing her dreams, choosing to shine lights the path for others. Please like this video if it spoke to you, and subscribe to hear more stories of women who refuse to dim their lights. Share it with anyone who needs to hear that their brilliance isn't too much, it's exactly enough. Thank you for watching, and remember, the only person who should be embarrassed by your light is the person who's been trying to keep you in the dark. Your brilliance is a gift, not just to you, but to everyone whose life you could touch with your talents. Never let anyone convince you to hide it again.